Tonight on News Center Now, text to 911. It may have been used the wrong way, forcing a major police response recently. What you should and shouldn't do in case you ever have to use it.
And revamping the commute between two main cities. A new report says it could cut down on commute times and traffic. But is the price tag worth it? This is News Center Now.
Well, good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Clay Gordon in for Lee Nelson.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. Joshua Tilley, the man wanted in Litchfield for domestic violence and kidnapping, is now in police custody. He was arrested near his home in Litchfield by Maine State Police with help from the Saginaw County Sheriff's Office and a police dog. Tilley is charged with kidnapping and domestic violence assault and has been taken to the Kennebec County Jail. Tilley was wanted in connection with the abduction of his girlfriend early Tuesday morning.
Now, the large police response to Litchfield was after a text to 911 message. Some Mainers are using the service now, but if you don't do it the right way, it could cause delays when time is running out.
Maine has been using text to 911 since 2015, when only 2 public safety centers were able to receive it. In December 2018, the technology was expanded to 24 state emergency dispatches.
All of the 911 centers in Maine now have the capability of receiving and managing text to 911 messages.
But the system isn't perfect.
According to the Maine Emergency Services Communications Bureau, texting should only be used when you can't call 911 on the phone, and the initial text should start with a location. Director Maria Jakes says emergency dispatch can accurately pinpoint a phone call using GPS, but a text message doesn't provide any location at all. And your phone needs to have cell service for the message to even get through.
So unless the texter provides the location, we do not know where you are. If location is not provided in the text message, they sometimes will just have the information about the cell tower, but the cell tower may not be anywhere near where the texter is located.
Jake says the difference between the system from 2015 and the present one is emergency text messages and phone calls can be transferred between 911 call centers. And at this time, photos, videos, attachments, and group messages cannot be processed.
We actually have a very advanced system here in Maine. It's a limitation of what the carriers are able to provide to 911 systems today.
A limitation that's trying to be resolved between phone carriers and the FCC in the future.
Now, something to think about, too, is people that live near the borders. Your message could go to a different state depending on the cell tower location, but Maine does share information between state lines. Now, according to the Canadian director of the National Emergency Number Association, at this time, if your text to 911 hits a Canadian cell tower, it will not work with their current system. However, Nina says there are plans to have a working system in Canada by December 2020.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, we are tracking some more storms tonight, and we're going to check in with Keith for the latest on that. What's up, Keith?
Yeah, we got some, so the first round of storms kind of petered itself out quickly. We didn't have much instability. So that's this right now moving through southern Maine. But it's this area behind it now that I'm watching, because we're starting to get a couple of cells that are separated or discrete, one coming through Plymouth, the other one coming to the east, Lebanon there, and then one coming across 93. So these cells now bear watching because they're right near the warm front, and we have seen a couple of storms try to spin up weak tornadoes along into the northeast of this warm front. And so what we're going to do now as these enter closer to Maine, coming into eastern New Hampshire, is check these cells and see if there's any rotation within them. Right now I am not seeing any, so that's good news. But again, these cells back here could be a threat for us later this evening. Current dew points upper 60s, so it's pretty juiced out there. You can feel that. That'll allow this convection to survive even when the sun sets for at least a few hours, and it stays pretty humid through the first half at least of tomorrow. So showers and storms still a threat around 8, 9 o'clock, and here we are around 10 o'clock still with showers and storms around. Guys, by tomorrow we're in better shape, and tomorrow is actually sneaky warm. Some of us will be in the mid 80s by the afternoon.
It's just going to sneak right back. All right, Keith. We'll talk with you soon. Thank you. Well, more than half of the pets rescued from a house in Solon last month could soon be up for adoption. The Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland says it has 55 dogs and 1 cat from the seizure in its care, and that it had received authorization to begin the process of making them available for adoption. Some of them could be adopted as early as this week. We'll have the full story. That's coming up on News Center Maine at 5:30.
The government will be able to hold immigrant children detained at the Mexican border for a longer period of time under a move by the Trump administration. Before now, parents and children caught trying to enter the country have been released while their asylum cases wind through the courts, a system President Donald Trump describes as catch and release. A court challenge is expected.
Wildfires are raging in the Amazon rainforest, and they have hit a record number this year. Brazil's Space Research Center has detected nearly 73,000 fires so far. The unprecedented surge has occurred since the country's president took office back in January, promising to develop the Amazon region for farming and mining, ignoring international concern over increased deforestation. A new report explores the possibility of creating a rail service between 2 main cities. It's said to be a way to reduce traffic and cut down on commute times.
Yeah, while there are no plans for approval in the near future, and this really is just a conversation starter, some commuters are excited about the idea of having another option to travel between Westbrook and Portland. Inside this Westbrook warehouse is American Roots, a Maine-based company specializing in making fleece products and creating jobs. They currently have 18 employees, and through agencies like Goodwill and Portland Adult Education, the founders established a training course for stitchers.
I use a bus. I have to use 2 buses to reach here.
Stitchers like Makenga Shawabwa. She commutes from her home in Portland to Westbrook every day and has to take 2 buses one way. Sometimes in the afternoon, it can take this mom of 4 close to an hour to get home.
Because as mom, you have to prepare dinner for your kids. You have to know how they pass their day. So you have to reach home quickly so that you must have all those information. Because if you get home late, you're not going to have time to talk to the kids and to know how they pass their day. So you have to be home quickly.
Shaving time off her commute would be possible if a rail service were to be created between Portland and Westbrook. That's according to a recently released feasibility study. The potential passenger rail service would run from West Commercial Street near Portland's Harborview Park to downtown Westbrook. There would be stops at Thompson's Point in Portland and Rock Row in Westbrook. The study looked at travel times by bus along a similar route and how that would compare to rail. From Portland to Westbrook, travel times could potentially be cut in half. The study from VHB of South Portland was done mostly to look at what a rail service would look like and what infrastructure would be needed. There's no plan for approval at this time. But for commuters like Makenga Shawabwab, the report provides hope for some more time at home.
I'm just excited. If maybe it's going to happen, then I'll be maybe the customer number 1.
She'll be the first customer in line, she says. According to that report, it could cost nearly $100 million, although Patricia Quinn, the executive director of the Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority, says that cost could be far less due to a number of different variables. She says the next steps remain unclear at this time.
All right, coming up, Amazon's biggest campus is not in the United States. We'll see where the tech giant is expanding to.
And the American Folk Festival in Bangor kicks off this weekend. We'll get to hear from some of the people who will be performing this year.
Welcome back. Amazon launching its biggest campus, I almost said campaign, but campus in the world, and it's in India.
Maybe that too eventually. This adds to its expansion plans in the country that has been one of the fastest growing overseas markets. The move comes months after the Seattle-based company scrapped plans to build a major outpost in New York, blaming opposition from local leaders. Amazon then picked Arlington, Virginia as the site for its upcoming second headquarters. The company said the new campus in India, spread over almost 10 acres and costing hundreds of millions of dollars, will house over 15,000 employees. More troubles for MoviePass.
TechCrunch says that tens of thousands of MoviePass customers' personal credit cards were exposed. Now, a security researcher found a database linked to the movie ticket subscription service containing more than 160 million unencrypted records. The report says more than 58,000 of those records contain MoviePass customer cards, which act like debit cards. And some records contained personal credit card numbers and various data related to those cards. Now, the exposed database has since been removed. Some new pictures of the Titanic wreckage have been uncovered. This is the first time we've seen new photos of the infamous ship in 14 years.
Pretty cool. And speaking of infamous, Keith is back with his full forecast. We are now just a few days away from the start of this year's American Folk Festival along the Bangor waterfront.
Yeah, that's where News Center's Sean Stackhouse is. And Sean, people must be pretty pumped up for the festival.
Well, Clay and Lindsay, a lot of folks that are involved with the festival are already down around the Bangor waterfront. Now, I will have to say it's a little quiet right now because of the weather, but over the coming days, it's going to be a whole slew of people packing into Bangor. Now, this festival features singers, dancers, and performing artists from all across the globe, and this is the 18th year that this has taken place on the Bangor waterfront. There is a lot more construction in this area, however. I had the chance to speak with some of the organizers about the challenges that came with planning this year's festival and what some of the changes are that folks will see.
It's going to be more of a linear design than what people are used to. We've got some construction going on at the waterfront, so it's going to look a little different, but all in all, it's going to be the same great experience.
We've realigned our 3 stages a little bit, and I think when people come in, it'll be the same experience. It's just going to be in slightly different spots.
Now, festival goers will be able to check out some of those new stage setups when the festival officially kicks off Friday at 6 p.m. And some of the acts that folks will have the chance to see at this year's American Folk Festival will be the Jones-Benally family. Now, this world-renowned troupe comes to us from Arizona and performs native Navajo music as well as traditional hoop dancing. Take a look. And the Garifuna Collective is just another one of the many groups that will be performing. They'll be coming to this year's festival from Belize. And now this Afro-Caribbean group will be performing a mix of African, native, and Spanish music. And they performed all across the world this summer and now getting ready to take their music to the Bangor waterfront. You can catch both of those acts this coming Friday, and there's going to be a whole lot more. Be sure to check out all of News Center Maine's coverage for the rest of the week and the weekend for this year's American Folk Festival. Live in Bangor, I'm Sean Stackhouse. Clay and Lindsay, I'll send it back to you.
And Sean, we can't wait to see you front and center on the dance floor. Actually, everyone kind of goes out right to, it's a really grooving type of event. It is.
We were just talking about, doesn't Sean have such a likable face? Like my face you see on TV, you're like, I just want to punch that guy in the face. Sean,
Your words,
you would
not
take him
ours.
home, take him home.
Sean,
people
see?
like him.
He's flooding you with compliments.
Sean, I think he's really just jealous. Real jealous over here.
Oh, he's touched.
All right, Sean, thanks, man, for joining us. Keith, he was wearing his rain jacket. He's going to need that.
Yeah, his News Center issued rain jacket. Yeah, it's a couple of showers up towards Bangor, but the severe weather is to our west, so let's have a look at that.
Do you wear that News Center rain jacket?
Actually, that's one of the few pieces I do wear.
He wore mine the other day.
I
full
did.
Disclosure.
Yep, woman's small. It fit.
Yep.
All right, so I don't know what that says about me or LL Bean. It could go either way. We've got some severe storms back way to our west in Albany, but Ryan and I were just talking about this cell out here to the north of Manchester that's a little bit interesting at this hour. So these storms that are sitting back here between the initial wave and the actual front could get kind of feisty here in the next 15 to 20 minutes as they move northeastward into eastern New Hampshire and Maine. And we take a look at the winds, and what we're trying to see is if there's any rotation. And just a little hint of it in that cell that I mentioned north of Manchester. The rest of the scan looks pretty clean, but we're just looking for that little rotation in these cells as they move northeastward. The warm front is right there, so that gives it the low-level shear necessary to rotate. Dew points are in the upper 60s, and so it's plenty humid, and it feels, tropical out there when it's raining. It's coming down hard. There's a lot of precipitable water in the atmosphere. Hour-by-hour forecast giving you these showers and storms through 9-10 o'clock at night, and then starts to taper them off around midnight tonight. After that, we start with some clouds early tomorrow morning. We should be able to go partly cloudy, though, through the middle of the day, and it gets pretty warm into the mid-80s by the afternoon. A couple of isolated showers in the foothills and mountains tomorrow afternoon, but most of us remain dry. And then a system kind of buzzes by us on Friday morning, giving us some coastal cloud cover, and then we clear out. Friday afternoon looks good, Saturday looks good, and most of Sunday is solid as well, although it will be substantially cooler and much drier than the weather we're seeing right now. Temperature trend, again, we talked yesterday about how I was going to take the under on some of these numbers, and the computer models have kind of snapped downward, because I think we'd be lucky to get to 70 on Sunday, and 68, 69 seems about right. Monday stays cool too, and then we start trending back upward for late next week. But this is certainly that stretch below average for a couple of days. So we'll watch the rest of the severe weather today. It's interesting because everything's in place, but typically speaking, when you get those early rain before a severe weather event, it kind of dampens the whole signal. I remember as a kid I used to get really upset if there's supposed to be severe weather and I woke up and it was raining, because it just usually wasn't a good sign for getting storms going. But we could get a few later today, and then tomorrow is warm. Again, the weekend's fine, but it's definitely coolish. Upper 60s, low 70s.
To your point, isn't the sun what really fires up those storms?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, certainly there are systems that can do it without the sun, but when you stabilize the atmosphere with all that rain, it makes it harder later to get severe weather.
And just about what age were you kind of focusing on that when you were younger?
I was 10. It was the blizzard of 1993, so I was born in 83. That's when I started to be into weather.
Yeah.
So young.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Keith, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Well, speaking of kids, it's back to school time for many children across the country, and that can mean being exposed to a lot of germs.
Yeah, there are some easy ways you can make sure your child remains healthy. Experts at Baylor College say one of the best ways to prevent the spread of germs is by washing hands or using hand sanitizer. And parents should also teach their children to cover their mouths when they cough or sneeze, and make sure they wash their hands afterwards. This last tip is easy to remember. If your child is sick, keep them home from school.
A lot of people are talking about trying to see all 50 states, but Rodney Smith Jr. is putting that plan into action and going way beyond that. A ton above it, some would say. His goal is to mow veterans' lawns in all 50 states, and today he stopped and took some time to snap a picture or two with Portland police officers. Several people went on social media to thank Rodney for what he's been doing, and we're happy he was able to make it up here to Maine. Well, new pictures from the Titanic wreckage have surfaced.
They captured the ship at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, about 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. Explorer Victor Vescovo is leading a mission to the bottom of the 5 oceans. The crew went 12,500 feet to the bottom to get the first images of the sunken British passenger liner in 14 years. Vescovo said the team made a total of 5 dives to the wreck over 8 days in early August. Information retrieved from the underwater testing will be used to make 3D models for use on augmented reality and virtual reality platforms. The images may also help scientists predict how quickly the wreck will continue to deteriorate. A former Soviet Navy captain who threw a message in a bottle into the ocean in 1969 said he was amazed after finding out it was recently found in Alaska.
Anatoly Botsinenko was 36 and serving in the Soviet Navy, and when he threw the bottle into the sea, the message included an address and a request for a response from the person who found it. Tyler Ivanov eventually found the handwritten Russian letter early this month while gathering firewood in western Alaska. He shared his discovery on Facebook, where Russian speakers translated the message into the greeting from a Cold War Russian sailor dated June 20th, 1969.
Cue the message in a bottle song.
Please, let's get going.
A lot more news coming up on News Center Maine at 5:30. Pat Callahan is here with a preview. Hi, Pat.
And it's a lot fresher than what you find in a bottle from 50 years ago. That's important, too.
That is very important.
Some animals that were seized from a home in Somerset County will soon be moving to new homes. But the people who've been looking out for them say many of these dogs and cats are going to need special care. Scientists say the effects of climate change are showing up at Acadia National Park. We'll look at some of the ways they say Acadia is changing. And there is nothing like seeing the beauty of Maine from the air, particularly if you're soaring along in a powered paraglider. This pastime is rapidly growing in popularity, so we'll check it out. Those stories and much more coming up on News Center at 5:30.
All right, Pat, we'll see you in a bit. We're back with raindrops after this.
All right, today's raindrops is interesting, but also I'm going to quiz you. And
That's all the time we have, folks.
I don't like to tell you guys. It's more fun this way. So
Sure.
new research links air pollution to increased risk of depression and bipolar disorder. So if you go down, they took Denmark and they took the United States and they used the air quality data that they have, then linked it to cases of depression, drug use, and also prescription drugs for different anxiety and whatnot. And so they found there was a pretty marked increase in areas that were highly polluted. This is not the first research of its kind. So we talk about sussing out research all the time. What do you think the first thing you would need to figure out what this study would be?
Where people are living, I guess?
Yeah, I would say like close to a busy
Location?
road or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of onto something. More specifically, is this an urban versus rural problem?
Okay.
Right? So you could argue, yes, there's a higher risk of depression and bipolar disorder in polluted areas. Okay, what are polluted areas more like? Are they typically more urban? Do those more urban areas have more prescription drug use, whatever the case may be? So this goes back to causation versus correlation. There is a correlation, and we're not at the point yet where we can say there's a causation between the two, because you could even you could go a step farther and say, what if you're living next to a factory and your job is a 12-hour-a-day factory job, and that's a really tough thing for your life. Therefore, you're more depressed, but you're also getting the you see what I'm getting at here?
Right.
So you always
Different
have to,
variables.
when you look at these studies, you always have to think, could there be another alternate explanation? We did one on how people who drink coffee tended to live longer, and I said, well, think about this. People who get up in time and need coffee are more likely to be employed, more likely then to have health insurance, more likely to be caught before they have
You're going to peel back the layers of the
yeah. So is
onion.
it the coffee or is it the lifestyle association that brings all this together?
I just saw one study that said like 8 cups a day, and I was like, I sometimes it's
You gotta
bad
step
for
it
you.
up.
Coffee causes cancer some days. Coffee extends your life some days.
Well, once you have the baby, you're going to drink it anyway. So
I already do.
Yeah.
I already drink a lot of it.
Lots of it. Thanks, Keith. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.